The song was Lady, the year was 1973. I'm Dennis DeYoung, that's me singing, and these are the sounds of the time.
In 1961, the 14-year-old Dennis DeYoung formed his first band with a pair of friends from his South Side Chicago neighborhood, Chuck and John Panazzo.
3 guys, 3 kids, before the Beatles, not playing rock and roll.
They call themselves the Trade Winds, with DeYoung playing accordion, and the repertoire was American standards.
Our first gig was for a friend of ours. My mother's and father's daughter got married, and they had it in the basement of their home because it was meager in those days. And we played, and they gave us potato salad and fried chicken, as I recall. We gradually started playing rock and roll. The epiphany was in February of 1964. My best friend, Dave, insisted we see the Beatles because he had Beatle boots, and he bought the album, and he was already nuts. So I stood there like this. And close your eyes, and I'll kiss you. I went, what? That was it. My future was an imprimatur upon my forehead. I'm going to be in the Beatles, or I'll form my own band and be the Beatles. That was it. And 2 weeks later at a Mendel Catholic high school dance, I met a girl, she was 15 years old, who would become my wife for 47 years. So as I looked back, in 2 weeks' time, my life professionally and personally was determined.
Now bitten by the rock and roll bug, DeYoung ditched the accordion and took up the keyboard, changed the band's name to TW4, and added some new members.
We replaced guitar players between 62 and 70. We ended up with John Serleski, who we'd met at Chicago State University. Then we added James Young, and that was the original band. We played together for a couple years still as TW4, and in 72, Wooden Nickel, which says everything you need to know about the record company, signed us to a record deal, and we began making albums.
But for the band, now called Styx, having a record label was just the first hurdle. The second was breaking through to radio success.
The hardest thing in the music business to have is your first hit. The hardest. First song I ever wrote and sang by myself on a record was Lady. I wrote that song for my wife. We'd been married in 70. It was 72. I wrote about the things I knew. And I thought, well, what do I know? I know her. I wrote it in 72 for the first album. The producer said, let's save it for the second album. Very clever. So, it came out. It was a bomb. It only got played in like 3 or 4 radio stations around the country.
Undaunted, Styx moved on. But the failed single from their second album refused to fade away.
We made 2 more albums. I told everyone the 4 years that we were struggling, that Lady was a hit. And you know how I knew it was a hit? Because when we played it, every night we played it in front of people, what would they do? They'd go wild over that song. And they liked the others, but that song, they said to me, was special.
And there was something special about Lady, whose plaintive opening measures seemed to cut through the noise of early 70s arena rock.
Lady, when you're with me, I'm smiling.
Boom. We're coming up to our last record deal. We had 4-album deal. It was the last one. We go up to WLS to present it to them and say, hey, would you play this? Jim Smith, the program director, says, nope. But tonight I'm going to play Lady at 8 o'clock on John Records' Landecker show, and I'm going to play it once a night to see if it's a hit. He did, and that's why I'm sitting here.
In 1975, 2 years after its initial release, Lady hit the charts, peaking at number 6. It was a first of a string of top 40 hits for both DeYoung and Styx.
We made records from 72 to 83 consistently. And so a lot of records were made there. We made a record in 72, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 81, 83. That's a lot of songs and a lot of records.
Through it all, the band's chief inspiration was the one that had turned them on to rock and roll in the first place.
The Beatles, it was right around the time of Rubber Soul and Revolver and Sgt. Pepper. They said, no limits. Anything's possible. Write the best song you can. I believed them. So Styx, although would be probably classified as what they call a kind of a proggy band when it began. I never really felt we fit into that category that well, because there was a hard rock and a pop side to us that all kind of came together that reflected the guys in the band who wrote the songs. If I said, here's some hit records, Renegade, Babe, Mr. Roboto, what do those songs have in common? They don't even sound like they're the same band. This I take as a badge of honor, and I'm proud of, that we had popular songs with people that didn't really fit into a category. I'm a melody man in a rhythm age. I love melody. Because look, I can write the greatest lyrics in the world, but I guarantee it, when I play a song, I'll go, lady, when you're with me, I'm smiling, and watch the audience, and they'll go, lady, when you're blah, 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 blah. They can sing the melody, but they don't always know all the words. Did that blow your ears? Would one of my songs ever have been popular worldwide in the 70s, where they didn't speak much English, if the words mattered? They don't. Not in the same way as the melody and the music itself.
Today, DeYoung remains a compelling stage performer, another legacy of his original band.
We had showmanship, hams, call it what you want, performers. We didn't stand there like a row of potatoes and stare at our shoes. We came from a generation of performers. And I think that's why. It was a combination of those two things. But above, number one is the song. It's the song.